what is the most unique part of how you plan your business for the year, like versus someone else?
Okay, so basically I like to go away, and I like to take the week before we go away, which will be like at the end of the previous year. So 2024, I was taking all of December to like evaluate what was going on energetically, and I figure out everything energetically first. So we planned a trip to Joshua Tree to basically map out the entire year ahead, which is where we did all of our little post-it board stuff. But going into that, I like to be as prepped as I can so that we're more sorting it out and not figuring out everything when we're there. So it was mostly the week before I was just channeling a lot and bringing in all the questions I had, and I'm tuning into more of the big picture stuff and just seeing what wants to come through me. And like, this is before we evaluate anything analytics wise. I mean, I don't think we really even looked at anything analytics wise until like last week. So we actually make the plan without the analytics. So I'll like prep the week before, and I think you're also kind of thinking about that as well. So then we go away, so we're in a different space, so we can get creative, and then it's just a whole focus session. So in Joshua Tree, what did we do? Basically, we mapped out like all of our initial thoughts of what had already come through for us intuitively. And so like here we have all the offers for the year ahead, products we're gonna create for Quartz, all of our main marketing strategies, our whole content plan, and then this one is a list of like just overall what the words are that represent the business, like what the mission is, what we want to teach people, how many people we want to help, and kind of big picture what the main offers are. So it's just like a succinct way of seeing the entire business. And then we went into channel. So we did this first, and then we brought in any questions, and I went into a trance, and Kaylin asked me questions, and we filled in all of the gaps for the business, and then we wrote this out. Then after we did that, we had a meeting where we put it into action. So we had a meeting with the rest of the team, and we plugged everything into the calendar logistically, and just kind of sorted out the logistical kinks. And that's all a lot faster once we've gotten the main energies down. So that is how we plan the year overall, I would say.
Yeah, and how long were you guys there? Like, how long does that process take?
It was a day.
Yeah.
It was a day. I think we could have had more time, but we also started a lot later in the day than I thought we were. I think if we had started at like 8 or 9 a.m., we would have just needed the day, but yeah, it was like a day, but we didn't finish everything. So then we kind of had to work on it again the following day. So it's like about a day's work, depending on how you split it up.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's a lot faster, but it's a lot of like anything that I'm channeling. Once I know, hey, here at this date, this time, it's the same thing with a book, or like if I'm making a program. I want to put it on the calendar because I'm going to start to get delivered signs and synchronicities leading up to that. And so I write all of those down, and it's all extra data, So the second I've said like, hey, December 28th, we're doing this, I'm channeling about this. Let's say it's December 1st, and I've planned that. Leading up to that, literally everything that comes into my reality, all the people I meet, all of the content I see, everything, they're all little clues that I write down, and they all add together until like the moment when we actually have to like fully channel it. So by that point, we have all the data that we need. So it's kind of like a bigger process, and you let it all shake itself out until like that final day, and then it comes in really fast, versus just going into it logically. If we're like, oh, tomorrow we're gonna plan this, it would take us, and in the past, like I used to do it this way, it's like it would take me 2 or 3 weeks, and there's so much back and forth, and what are we doing, and like it's just ineffective. So it's better to like channel it, like set the intention, let it all come in, and then by the time you're actually doing it, we can do it in a day, versus before this used to take like weeks to kind of sort it all out, sort all the kinks, have all the conversations, have all the discussions. So it kind of takes a lot of the discussion out of it, because we're just tuning into like the frequency of the business and the mission and letting that drive versus what we think. And then we'll go back to analytics later and like basically usually just get confirmation that what we had planned on is the right path versus letting analytics lead. Also because, this year we're going in kind of a different direction. Like it's not just a continuation of what we did last year. It's we got rid of a ton of my programs. Like we changed our main offers, and even just with the messaging, like I'm going in a different direction. So we need to kind of turn the ship a bit. So it was kind of like starting fresh, essentially. So yeah.
Can you talk about the Divine Wealth Blueprint that we did also in Joshua Tree?
Oh yeah, we also, so that day we started with the meditations and the membership. So we did the Divine Wealth Blueprint, and then I also did the Clarity one. So basically you just sit down and press play. And the Wealth Blueprint is something I've been doing for years. So basically, it's a meditation guided energy work, and like Kaylin did it, and then I did it, and then we kind of brought forward what we both got. But it basically just helps you download like any business ideas that you need for the year, or career ideas if you don't have your own business. And it does the energy work for you. So we did that first thing because it'll clear out any blocks, and then like the messages I was getting were clear. And I think even that day there were a couple of things that we did in the morning where I was going into the day thinking we were going to make certain plans. Then after that meditation, I changed a lot of the plans. So easy, press play.
Yeah, wow. So whole year's planned out. How do you tell me about spreading out the events like through the year? How do you budget for that, and like how do you spread out events and projects?
Planning, there's my natural inclination is to be super intuitive, and I'm like, we need to do this next week or next month, and we'll mostly be like that, but that gets really hard because then we have too many offers plopped on top of each other. So what we'll do is we'll map out, like I have a list where it's like on the list with all the offers. Oh, this one, all the offers for the year. Each of these things has to be plugged in the calendar. So that's after we made this, we looked at the calendar and we just quite literally plugged in, like reverse engineered. Okay, how long does this take? Like some of these are like a retreat is one weekend, right? And we have like a big event. Okay, that's one weekend. But certain things like a big event, that's gonna take 6 to 8 months to really do the lead up for, versus a retreat, we really only need like 2 months. So it's like, okay, so that big event goes at the end of the year, that retreat goes in the middle of the year. Plus we're looking at other offers. So things like energy healing training for Ahai, that's, a couple months process of a program, but we can't be advertising the retreat at the same time as we're advertising for energy healing. So we have to like kind of play Tetris with all these offers, and we're looking at how long they last. And then like, if we want to plop it here, what's the time for marketing? Like how long do we need to market? What's the turnaround time? Because we're thinking about the marketing calendar. And then that kind of informs when we can plug in other things. So I typically plug in like the biggest things. So like programs that are going to last a couple months are bigger time blocks for me. And then like a huge event is going to be a bigger thing. A retreat, I can kind of plug in anywhere where it makes sense, but I'm filling in those big spaces and then plugging in things that are like one-offs at the end. And then smaller things like master classes, like master classes, one-off sessions, like half-day intensives, things like that can get plugged in anywhere. That's like the last thing we do. So it's kind of like just a game of Tetris where we just have to get clear on everything we want to create, how long the actual program is, what my involvement is, but really more of the marketing time, like the lead time. And then also a lot of this, I'm creating new stuff this year. So we're also thinking about how long is it going to take me to create this, so it's like books are on here, but a book, I can write a book really fast, but even if I write a book in 2 days, like it takes at least a month if we're doing a super fast turnaround, right? Like in an ideal world, we would give that 3 to 4 months. Or like with Ahai training, because I'm redoing the whole program, it's like, we have to account for it's going to take me a couple of months to record all of this content. So that's kind of how we plan out the year. Budgeting. I'm not really a budgeter. I don't really believe in budgeting. But I run my business a bit more like, I don't know, one-to-one, I guess I would say. Like typically the finances will work themselves out, but if we just did something that took a lot more expense-wise that I wasn't anticipating, because expenses do pop up that you don't anticipate, then we'll see what we could plug in to kind of like even it out. And to be honest, this is what I do in my personal life. Like, I'm not a budgeter. I think, everybody has their own process, but I've never budgeted. I just basically only focus on forward momentum. And if anything comes up that's gonna like pull us backwards, then I'll add in something else that will bring us back to profit. So that's just kind of how I've always run my business, and it works well. I feel like the energy of budgeting, just from an energetic perspective, it's very not in alignment with making more money for me. So it's like a pulled back energy. It's like a management energy. It's a restrained energy. It's a constricting energy for money. And my relationship with money, it's like I work with money as a consciousness, as a being, and money doesn't like to be put on a leash. So I find that while budgeting can help people, I know it can help people, I find that it more keeps you in the same income bracket, versus if you want your income bracket to keep changing, you have to unleash money. Like, you have to let it go, run wild, So I'm not really like a huge fan of the concept of budgeting. That being said, sometimes there are things where I'm like, hey, I know this is gonna be a huge investment for us. And when I know that going into it, then we're gonna kind of stack things on the other side of it that are gonna be our biggest money makers. So the best thing about what I do is I can pull whatever levers I need. Financially, I can pull whatever levers I need. It's not like, it's harder with something like a physical product, because it's like, oh, are we just gonna pull another product out of our butts? Like, yeah, I guess you can, but for me, it's like I can just run this program again. I can just see more clients. I can whatever. So yeah, I don't really budget.
Yeah. So being a business owner, things are always changing, things are always evolving. How do you deal with those changes and updates that come? And how do you navigate that as they come?
Yeah, I plan on it. I guess that's the best way to describe it. Like, we create a plan, but plans to me are always going to be flexible, and they're always going to change. Like, I'm already planning on the plan changing. So I think that mindset is what shifts everything. One of my best friends, like, she would always tell me, she's like, I think the best structure for you is to have a structure that allows for constant change. And that's very much how I've learned to kind of run the business. So I think it's just, you have to be willing to be adaptable, and things will change a lot. And especially not even just as a business, of course things come in, but also for me as a psychic, like, I'll be like, oh, I got this download, we have to do this tomorrow. And I think everybody on the team has to understand that's just part of what it's like to work with me, and part of what it's like to work in a small business. Like, it's lean, it's tight, and everybody has to be able to change everything at the drop of the hat. And you have to be okay with, I put so much time and energy in this direction, and we're just changing it last minute. Like, that's just the reality of running a business. And so I think it's more like, I don't feel like I deal with it because it's just the nature of entrepreneurship. Like, if you are expecting to be a business owner and like figure it out, and then you figured it out and you never have to figure anything else out, then you shouldn't be an entrepreneur. And being an entrepreneur is, you're constantly receiving challenges. And so your whole job is being a problem solver, essentially. So I guess when it comes in, I'm just expecting it. Sometimes people who don't run their own business, I'll be talking to them like, wow, like, this sounds like so much chaos, whatever. And I was like, oh no, this is just how it is all the time. Like, it's just, everything's changing. There's always stuff to figure out and move around. And that's just, when you're running a company, you just, I think, are used to that mindset. So for someone else on the outside, they might think that sounds crazy or too stressful or too chaotic. It's just because they don't know what it's like to run a business, So when things come up that have to change, I just have to change them. We have to change them.
Yeah. So how many times would you say you are going in reflection mode or reviewing your business, and how do you structure that?
I'm going in reflection mode pretty much every day. But I would say in a concentrated way, at least once a month. And the structure for that is literally I set up a little sacred space, I light some candles, I turn on binaural beats, I open my Akashic Records, and I spend a couple hours getting my questions answered and figuring out and looking at the energy of the business and the team and what I need and where we're going. So, that's pretty much what I do reflection-wise. And then I'll usually ask people on the team, if I have follow-up questions, I'm like, can you double check this? what were the analytics on that? Like, I'll basically use that to say, oh, like, yeah, what the spirit said were correct. And then we just go with it.
I wonder how you are doing 10 projects at a time. LOL, I already feel overwhelmed with 4.
I mean, I think that's a good thing to talk about. Okay. Like, how am I doing 10 projects at a time? Not gracefully and like barely hanging on. Like, that's a reality. Like, I mean, that's just this is why I'm obsessed with time management. It's something like I always have to improve on and I'm always working on. I mean, this morning I listened to like 5 podcasts on time management. It's like every book next to my bed is about, like, I'm so fascinated with time and time blocking and structuring your day. And I've experienced like the real life effects of that, of just reordering things, whatever. So it's just something I'm constantly learning about. And I really think that's the key to, it's the key to success for most like really high level entrepreneurs. So, you know, read anyone's book about entrepreneurship, like there's going to be a big portion about just scheduling and structuring and like how do you balance so much at the same time. And we talked about this at the event a little bit, but I'm like, that's just part of what you have to learn as an adult, is to juggle a lot of things at the same time. And I think I'm just more comfortable with the fact that not everything is at 100% for me all the time. Like, I don't know, if I'm like, but I'm okay with that. If I'm working on a project and I'm so 150% into it, the reality is my sleep probably isn't going to be at its 100%, but I don't care because I'm like in the project. So it doesn't even feel like it's lacking because the project is doing so well. You know, like when my social life is at its height, my business is not at its height. Like, that's just the reality of it. But I think I'm just kind of okay with it. So, I mean, to answer that more specifically, I would say I plan my days down to the minute, like every day, which is probably not healthy, but I do. Like, everything is planned out. Like when I'm working out, when I'm going on a walk, when I'm calling people, you know, like which platforms I'm using, when, like everything. So I'm like super planned to the minute, which means I'm also late to everything, which is fine. But I plan my month in advance and I plan my week in advance. And so when I'm juggling 10 things, I'm looking at when are my big blocks that I could do this. So sometimes that's like, I'm blocking off a weekend to work on a big project. I think the reality is, like, for me, I cannot get everything I need to get done just like Monday through Friday, like whatever hours I work a lot more, like I have a different flow. So I'm always looking at when is my deep work time, because everything that I do is deep work, which can be kind of overwhelming. So because to do deep work, it's like, I can't do deep work in a 15-minute pocket of the day. So what I do is I have to look at my month overall and when I have full days off, or at least like a 5-hour block, and then that's what I have to do in that time. So that's kind of how I manage it. And I also don't typically put deadlines on myself, but I'm also a very motivated person, so I don't need deadlines. But sometimes things take longer because they just have to. So I think I'm okay with that. So I think a lot of the questions people ask about like this stuff, there's an underlying energy for many people where they're just judging themselves. They're judging themselves. Like, why am I not doing better? And I think the difference is, like, for me, I don't really judge myself. It just is what it is. So I think that's the key piece. Like, if I said I need to finish these 10 projects in these next 2 months, I would feel shitty about myself. But I'm like, I'm working on these 10 projects and they're gonna be done exactly when they're supposed to be done. And then they get done eventually. So.
Yeah, can you tell me, so you're juggling a lot of projects and things, like your social life, you know, relationships, whatever, family, work, like how do you compartmentalize each thing so you're showing up like as fully present as possible and like giving your full energy? Like, is there anything you do to transition into the next thing so you're not like, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Sometimes there is, sometimes not. So I would say, I guess the way that I transition is gonna be like through my body and or through music. So I'll use music to shift my vibe into whatever it needs to be, like a bridge if it's like 10 minutes, you know. So typically for me, it's like whatever I'm getting ready for next. So if I'm working and then I'm going to a social setting or I'm spending time with my boyfriend, like I have to get into a different energy so I don't bring that there. So it's usually while I'm just like getting dressed for whatever the thing is next or getting ready in that 10 minutes, I'm like using music to shift that, or my body often. So like yesterday morning, I was doing a lot of more personal stuff, like first thing when I woke up. And then I needed to get into work mode. And so I just like, with my body, I was like screaming, I was like moving, I was just like getting all the energy out, because I think most of the time I don't need a conscious transition, because everything I do, I literally am like 150% so present that by the time I'm done with it, I'm done with it. Like I don't want to think about it, you know? So I just don't, when I'm hanging out with my boyfriend, like I'm not thinking about work, because I'm so gassed from my whole day thinking about work so hard, there's nothing left for me to think about. Like that's just how I am, you know? I think also part of that was a skill. Like I used to be somebody who could not stop thinking about all these things all the time. And I was so anxious. And I don't even remember the moment, but I just remember being like, I have to just stop thinking about it. And I just stopped. And I think I just got good at it. Meditation probably also helped me a lot, you know, building that muscle. I think it is a muscle, because at first I couldn't do that. But when I started doing energy healing is when I learned like, hey, in this hour, no one's talking and I'm just here. I can't think about those things. And what that felt like was at first those things were coming up, but then eventually I ran out of things to think about. So those are probably all the, like, I guess the things that I tangibly do. But I find that it's like the harder you are in terms of like how present you are, the more you give to where you're at in the present moment, and then you fully complete the cycle energetically, and then the next thing you go into, you don't have to bring anything else in, you know? So I honestly think that's the thing I do the most, is I just, whatever I'm presently in is all I'm in.